Today it was time for the Revival Trance Red, White, Black deck from Final Fantasy. So we're gonna have a deck box that this all will go in, and has kind of these odd little art cards and a sample pack and a little insert with information about the deck. So the first or main suggested commander is Terra, Herald of Hope. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, a human wizard warrior for 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black mana. Trance. At the beginning of combat on your turn, mill 2 cards. Terra gains flying until end of turn. Whenever Terra deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2. When you do, return target creature card with power 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. I mean, I'm not huge on milling, but to be able to get a cheap creature back onto the battlefield is kind of helpful. I guess that, cheating it in by not paying its mana cost is kind of a trade-off. The alternate One of the alternative commanders, we have Celis, Rune Knight. It's a 4/4 legendary creature, a human wizard knight for 1, mountain, a plains, and a swamp. Whenever Celis enters, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards plus 1. Whenever one or more other creatures you control enter, if one or more of them entered from a graveyard or was cast from a graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. So, like milling, I'm not huge on discarding cards, but if for whatever reason you have a crappy hand, you can discard some cards to your graveyard, draw hopefully some better cards, and then I'm hoping there's some cards to play stuff from your graveyard where this kind of seems to care about, stuff getting cast or played from the graveyard and playing 1/1 counters on your creatures because of that. Coin of Fate. It's an artifact for 1 in the plains. When this artifact enters, surveil 1. Pay 3 in the plains, tap, exile 2 creature cards from your graveyard. Sacrifice this artifact. An opponent chooses one of the exile cards. You put that card on the bottom of your library and return the other to the battlefield tapped. You become the monarch. I don't remember what set it was. Monarch was kind of a thing for a little while, and then it seemed like it went away. But this must have been one of the kind of like niche, this kind of fit, let's throw this back in here. I don't really remember what the Monarch did other than certain cards cared about being the Monarch or made you become the Monarch. I mean, not huge on exiling your own creatures, but kind of interesting that one goes back to the bottom of your library, and the other comes to your battlefield. So, like, you're exiling them to get them back. So, kind of okay this time. Next, we have Cyan Vengeful Samurai. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, a human samurai for 6 in the plains. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. You know, so obviously 7's a high mana cost, but it cares about, you know, stuff in your, well, in this case, creatures in your graveyard. It makes it cheaper. Has double strike. When one or more creature cards leave your graveyard, put a 1/1 counter on Cyan. So, I mean, a 3/3 with double strike is pretty good, even though the mana cost might be high, but you buff it if creatures are leaving the battlefield, or not, sorry, leaving the graveyard. So, again, hopefully there's some cards that'll pull stuff from your graveyard to put them onto the battlefield. General Leo Kristoff. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a human soldier for 4 in the plains. When General Leo Kristoff enters, return up to 1 target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Then put a 1/1 counter on on General Leo Kristoff for each creature you control. So, I mean, kind of cool. It's getting a low mana creature back from the graveyard and putting a 1/1 counter on this guy. Esper to Magicite. It's an instant for 3 in a swamp. Exile each opponent's graveyard. When you do, choose up to 1 target creature card exiled this way. Create a token that's a copy of that card, except it's an artifact and it loses all other card types. So it feels kind of weird to copy a creature to just make it an artifact. But there's must be some reason for that. You know, maybe some creatures that have good rule text, but you're making a drawback by not making a token copy of the creature because you're making an artifact. The Falcon Airship Restored. It's a 4/3 legendary artifact, a vehicle for 2 in a swamp. Has flying. I mean, it's an airship. It would be odd if it didn't have flying. When the Falcon deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can pay 4 in a swamp, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It has crew 2. So, unlike the, you know, last card that let you get creatures from the battlefield, or from the graveyard back to the battlefield, if it was mana 3 or less, I believe, this one will do any creature, but, I mean, you're basically sacrificing this creature to get another creature back, and then later paying, you know, 4 in a swamp to bring this back to the battlefield to potentially keep returning that sacrifice, pay to get this back process. Interceptor, Shadow's Hound. It's a 4/3 legendary creature, a dog for 2 and 2 swamps. Has menace. Assassins you control have menace. Whenever you attack with 1 or more legendary creature, you may pay 2 in a swamp. If you do, return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. So, I mean, the fact that it's a 4/3 was Menace. If it does happen to die and you attack with, one or more legendary creatures, you can pay 3 to, bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield. So that's nice. Rejoin the fight. It's a sorcery for 5 in a swamp. Mill 3 cards. Then starting with the next opponent in turn order, each opponent chooses a creature card in your graveyard that hasn't been chosen. Return each card chosen this way to the battlefield under your control. So, I mean, I've already said that I'm not huge on milling, but the ability to then get 1 or more creatures back from your graveyard to the battlefield is pretty nice. Depends on how many players you're playing with. If you only have 1 opponent, you're getting 1 card. So, feels like, a lot, 6 mana to mill 3 and then get 1 creature back. But, if you're playing 2, 3, 4 opponents, you're potentially getting more value the more opponents you have. Shadow, Mysterious Assassin. It's a 3/3 legendary creature, a human assassin for 2 in a swamp. Has Death Touch. Throw. Whenever Shadow deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a non-land permanent. If you do, draw 2 cards and each opponent loses life equal to the mana value of the sacrifice permanent. So, I mean, yes, you might be sacrificing something, but you're drawing cards and making your opponents lose life, so kind of a small drawback for the benefit. And, I mean, it's just 3/3 with Death Touch, so it's a body on the battlefield too. Sage Friend, or Sage Fried Famed Swordsman. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a human warrior rogue with for 3 in the swamp. Has Menace. When Sage Fried enters, mill 3 cards. Then put X/1/1 counters on Sage Fried, where X is twice the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So, not huge on milling, but he gets X/1/1 counters for creatures being in the graveyard. So, kind of a trade-off. You maybe get rid of a couple of things milling that you might get back later to give this guy a bunch of 1/1 counters. Feral Youth. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a human berserker for 1 in a mound. Rage. Whenever Gao attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. At the beginning of each end step, if a card left your graveyard this turn, Gao deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So, I mean, that seems like it snowballs. It gets 1/1 counters every time it attacks, and, if something's leaving the graveyard, it's dealing damage to opponents. So even though it's cheap, it seems like it might be the target of removal in the hopes that it doesn't get out of hand. Go Mysterious Mime. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a wizard for 3 in a mound. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have Go-Go become a copy of another target creature you control until end of turn. Except its name is Go-Go, Mysterious Mime. If you do, Go-Go and the creature each get +2/+0 and gain haste until end of turn, and attack this turn if able. Sabin, Master Monk. It's a 4/3 legendary creature, a human noble monk for 4 and a mountain, has double strike, blitz, 2 and 2 mounds, discard a card. If you cast the spell for its blitz cost, it gains haste, and whenever this creature dies, draw a card. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. You may cast this card from your graveyard using its blitz ability. So that's kind of cool that even though it's in the graveyard, it has a different potential mana cost to play it. I mean, yes, you'll have to sacrifice it at end of turn, but I mean, it gets haste so you potentially attack with it to have to sacrifice it. So, if you have nothing else, it seems like a good here, let's try to do some damage or potentially take out one of your opponent's cards. Snort. It's a sorcery for 3 and a mound. Each player may discard their hand and draw 5 cards. Then Snort deals 5 damage to each opponent who discarded their hand this way. Flashback is 5 and a mountain. The reminder text says you may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. So, kind of gives your opponents, everyone an opportunity to get rid of a bad hand, to draw 5 new cards. And if you have less than 5 cards, drawing 5 cards might seem like incentive. The drawback for your opponents would be potentially taking 5 damage. But if your opponents have a life gain deck, they're probably not concerned about their life, especially where life is a resource, and card draw is pretty helpful. Strago and Realm. It's a 1/3 legendary creature, a human wizard for 2 and a mountain. Sketch and War. 2 and a mountain, tap. Target opponent exiles card from the top of their library until they exile an instant, sorcery, or creature card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. If you cast a creature spell this way, it gains haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this creature. Activate only as a sorcery. Summon. Esper Valgarmada. It's a enchantment creature, Saga Drake. So it's a like a 3/3 creature that's also a saga for 3 and a mound. As this saga enters, and after your draw step, add a war counter, sacrifice after the it says 4, so after you put the 4th war counter, and do what it wants you to do for the 4th. So the first stage is exile an instant or sorcery card from each graveyard, and then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th stage are all the same. Add a mountain for each war counter on this saga. You may Cast an instant or sorcery card exiled with this saga, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. And the creature part is a 3/3 with flying and haste. Given where it's a creature, if it gets destroyed, you're not going to be able to use the rest of this saga. So I guess you could either remove it using enchantment removal or creature removal or from combat. So I guess that's plus and minuses. You know, you have a creature that you could attack with or defend with if you need, but then gets more ways to remove it, so that's kind of a little bit of a drawback. Amaro, Raging Yeti. It's a 6/6 legendary creature, a Yeti Berserker for 5 and a mountain. It has trample, so as a 6/6, having trample is pretty nice. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose one at random. Other creatures you control get +3/+0 and trample until end of turn. Discard your hand, then draw 4 cards. Or Amaro deals 5 damage to any target. So I mean, all pretty decent choices that, given you have to choose at random. I mean, discarding your hand to draw 4 cards if you have a good hand might not be the best choice, but you know, if you're discarding cards, hopefully you get 4 good cards. Bannon, the Returner's leader. It's a 1/3 legendary creature, a human cleric rebel for a mountain and a plains. Pray. Once during each of your turns, you may cast a creature spell from among cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere other than the battlefield this turn. Whenever you attack, you may pay 1 and discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So another card that likes to bring stuff back. I mean, yes, you can potentially be discarding to draw a card, so that will fill your graveyard up to potentially be grabbing something. I mean, the only drawback, like, yes, there's no mana requirements or whatever, like, oh, you have to be mana 3 or less, like, there's no requirements like that, but it has to have hit the graveyard the turn you're trying to return it, so, and it can't have been put there from the battlefield, so, like, it can't have died to removal or from combat. So a little niche, but also not like 100% restrictive as far as like, oh, only certain mana or only certain power creatures. Edgar, Master Machinist. It's a 2/4 legendary creature, human artificer, noble for 2, a mountain and a plains. Once during each of your turns, you may cast an artifact spell from your graveyard. If you cast a spell this way, the artifact enters tapped. Tools. When Edgar attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. So the last card cared about bringing creatures back from your graveyard. This card cares about bringing artifacts instead of creatures back. Kefka, Dancing Mad. It almost looks like, you know, a clown or, you know, a really odd spin-off of the Joker from the Batman It's a 6/6 legendary creature, a human wizard for 5, a swamp, and a mound. During your turn, Kefka has Indestructible. At the beginning of your end step, exile a card at random from each opponent's graveyard. You may cast any number of spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. Then each player who owns a spell you cast this way loses life equal to its mana value. I mean, that seems pretty cool because you're getting rid of your opponent's stuff in their graveyard, so they aren't able to, play those cards. You're able to play it from exile without paying its mana cost, and then if you do, you're dealing damage to your opponents. I mean, what's not to like other than, the mana cost to get that kind of value? And I feel like that's probably going to be something that would be, targeted pretty quick so that your opponent's not losing stuff and getting damaged. Walk, Treasure Hunter. It's a 2/3 legendary creature, a human rogue for 1, a swamp, and a mountain. Walk can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Mug. Whenever Walk attacks, each player mills a card. If a land card was milled this way, create a treasure token. Until end of turn, you may cast a spell from among those cards. I mean, not huge on milling, but the possibility of getting a treasure token and being able to cast those cards, until end of turn. Very niche situation. It could be helpful, I guess. Mogul Warrior. It's a 1/2 legendary creature, a Mogul Warrior for 1, a mountain, and a plains. Has lifelink. Dance. At the beginning of your end step, each player may discard a card. Each player who discards a card this way draws a card. If a creature card was discarded this way, you create a 1/2 white Mogul creature token with lifelink. Then, if a non-creature card was discarded this way, put a 1/1 counter on each Mogul you control. So, while I don't like discarding stuff, the ability to get, more bodies on the battlefield and potentially, pump them up, putting 1/1 counters on them, seems to outweigh the, downside of discarding stuff, I guess. Setzer, Wandering Gambler. It's a 2/2 legendary creature, a human rogue pilot for 1, a swamp, and a mountain. When Setzer enters, create the Blackjack, a legendary 3/3 colorless vehicle artifact token with flying and crew 2. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, flip a coin. Whenever you win a coin flip, create 2 tapped treasure tokens. The Warring Triad. It's a 5/5 legendary artifact creature, a god for 3, has flying, trample, and haste. As long as there are fewer than 8 cards in your graveyard, the Warring Triad isn't a creature. Tap, mill a card, target player adds 1 mana of any color. That's kind of interesting that, you're targeting a creature for that, or sorry, targeting a player for that, and not adding the one man of any color yourself. I guess, if you're playing politics in a pod, you could tap this to give one mana to someone you're trying to help out, but in most cases, I'm not trying to help you out. I'm trying to win the game, so I don't know why you would want to give someone a free mana unless they're gonna, do something to a different opponent. Sun Titan. It's a 6/6 creature, a giant for 4 and 2 planes. Has vigilance. Whenever this creature enters or attacks, you may return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I feel like this was around in the early to mid 2010s maybe, because I feel like I had this card in deck just so I could grab cheap stuff from the graveyard. It's a 6/6 with vigilance, so even if you're not getting anything or only get 1 or 2 things, it still feels like it's you're getting your value from it. Tragic Arrogance. It's a sorcery for 3 and 2 planes. For each player, you choose from among the permanents that players control an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker. Then each player sacrifices all other non-land permanents they control. So, it's a board wipe that you're saying keep one of these from the way I'm reading it. Archfield of Depravity. It's a 5/4 creature, a demon for 3 and 2 swamps. Has flying. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creatures they control, then sacrifices the rest. So, that seems like it would be something that would either get countered or removed real quick, where you're forcing your opponents to sacrifice creatures. And it's a 5/4 with flying, so even if you weren't forcing your opponents to sacrifice anything, having something attack for 5 flying, you'll whittle away your opponent's life pretty quick unless it's the lifelink player. Reanimate. It's a sorcery for a swamp. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to its mana value. And it says a graveyard, not your graveyard, so it could be one of your opponents. Yes, you're losing life equal to mana value, but that's, life's a resource, so it's a small price to pay to get something, especially where there's no restrictions on type of creature, or mana value, nothing about power or toughness. It's just grab a creature from any graveyard, lose some life. Rise of the Dark Realms. It's a sorcery for 7 and 2 swamps. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Getting all creatures from all graveyards on the battlefield under your control, that's pretty sweet. yes, it's 9 mana, but you're not going to have something that does that much for 2 or 3. That and I mean, the drawback is it could be countered, or your opponents could be sitting on a board wipe, but then you're forcing them to use their resources to potentially have something else up your sleeve. Scipio Charo Primordial. It's a 5/5 creature, an avatar for 5 and 2 swamps. Intimidate. The reminder text says this creature can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and or creatures that share a color with it. When this creature enters for each opponent, you may put up to one target creature card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So a 5/4 that can only be blocked by an artifact creature or a creature sharing the same color, so in this case black. That seems decent on its own, but then you're grabbing a creature from your opponents too. Combustible Gear Hulk. It's a 6/6 artifact creature, a construct for 4 and 2 mounds. For a strike, when this creature enters, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If that player doesn't, you mill 3 cards, then this creature deals damage equal to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. So you're letting your opponent decide which is the lesser of 2 evils. You getting to draw 3 cards, or your opponent who's choosing taking damage based on the mana value of cards you're milling. Player of the Hatebound. It's a 4/2 creature, a devil for 4 and mound. Undying. When this creature dies, if it has no 1/1 counters on it, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a 1/1 counter on it. When this creature or another creature enters from the graveyard, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So, I mean, where there's a handful of cards that you're grabbing stuff from graveyards, putting it onto the battlefield. If this guy's on the battlefield, you're having those creatures entering deal damage equal to their powers to any target, so you're potentially using those creatures as removal, or you're dealing damage, non-combat damage to your opponents, depending on what makes sense in the moment. Rune Grinder. It's a 7/4 artifact creature, a construct for 5 and a mound. Has menace. When this creature dies, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. And it also has mound cycling 2. The reminder text says you pay 2, discard this card, search your library for a mound card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. The Devil. It's an instant for 2 swamps and a mound. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. I mean, it's 3 mana, 2 of one color, 1 of another. So a little bit unique in its mana cost, but it's removal for potentially 1 of 3 different card types, so it's a little bit more versatile than just like Mardu, which only does creatures, or there are some cards that are like just creature or planeswalker. Like this adds artifact, so like you have your choice of 3 different card types. Legions to Ashes. It's a sorcery for 1, plains and a swamp. Exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls and all tokens that player controls with the same name as that permanent. So, I mean, if you're going against a token deck, you name the name of some token that happens to be a permanent. So, let's say a soldier token. Oh, hey, your 10 soldier tokens? Yeah, they're all exiled at the same time. So for 3, that seems pretty decent. Priest of Fell Rites. It's a 2/2 creature, a human warlock for a plains and a swamp. Tap to pay 3 life, sacrifice this creature. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So, I mean, it's a cheap creature, kind of a small buy, a 2/2, but you have the possibility to pay 3 life and sacrifice it to get a creature back. And it's only on your turn, where it says activate only as a sorcery. The unearth cost is 3 plains and a swamp. Your reminder text says 3 plains and a swamp. Return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Exile it at the beginning of your next end step, or if it would leave the battlefield. Unearth only as a sorcery. Ruinous Ultimatum. So there was quite a few ultimatums where, there's 3 colors. This one is the one that's, sorry, I should back up. It's a sorcery, but this particular ultimatum was 2 mountains, 3 plains, and 2 swamps to destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. So, 7 converted mana cost, 2 of 2 different mana types, and then 3 of the 3rd mana type. So it might be a lot, but it's a board wipe for all non-land permanents your opponents control. So you're basically resetting your opponents while keeping your battlefield presence, so you're potentially swinging unchecked to later in the game to win. Where there's still so much to go through, I'm gonna do a second video for this last Final Fantasy, the Revival Trance Final Fantasy Commander deck. So hopefully you found some value in this. Keep tuning in for the rest of this video and some more Magic and Pokemon related videos. Thanks and have a good day.